Okay, so now we are going to talk about subtracting integers. So basically subtracting two numbers is in a way the same as adding a negative number to the other. So for instance, here we have 2 minus 14. We can actually rewrite this as 2 plus negative 14, right? Now we notice that here we have opposite signs, right? So because we have opposite signs, then remember that we go ahead and subtract the smaller number from the highest one. So here it'll be 14, take away 2, that will give us 12, and we keep the sign of the bigger number. So in this case it's a negative. So our answer will be negative 12. Now for part B, we have negative 9 minus 13. We can rewrite this as negative 9 plus negative 13. And here we have the same sign for both. And because we're doing an addition with two numbers that have the same sign, that means that we're going to add the values. So 9 plus 13, which is going to be 22. And then we keep the sign that they both have. So this is a negative 22. Now let's do a third example, and this one is 31 minus 14. So we can rewrite this as 31 plus negative 14. We notice that they have opposite signs. So because they have opposite signs, then we subtract the smaller number from the highest one. So 31 take away 14, that's going to give us 17. And we notice that the highest value, it's a positive, right? So this is going to be a positive 17. Okay, so in a way we can say that working with a subtraction means adding the inverse sign. So the inverse sign means that if it's a positive, then we're adding the negative, or if it's a negative, then we are adding the positive. So we're adding the inverse sign of the number being subtracted. So again, that means that if we add or we subtract a negative number, so when we subtract a negative number, and we are actually adding the positive value of that number. So we notice that a subtraction kind of switches the sign of the number, right? So let's go over a couple of examples of when we are subtracting a negative value. So again, when we subtract a negative, then we're actually adding the positive. Okay, so let's say we have 23 minus negative 34. So we notice that we are subtracting a negative value. Now we know that the inverse of negative 34 is positive 34. So that means that this subtraction will become 23 plus, right, positive 34, which is just 23 plus 34, and that is going to give us 57. So in a way, we can say that when we subtract a negative, that becomes a positive. So that operation turns out into a positive. So let's go over another example. Let's say we have 15 minus negative 20. Okay. So as soon as you see that negative value, right? So there's negative value right outside of a parentheses, and then another negative value inside of the parentheses, then that means that this operation is going to turn out into a positive. Now, a lot of people, what they do is, instead of rewriting the negative and then the positive, just like the way I did it on the previous example, they just go ahead and kind of like connect them, making a positive sign. So a negative and a negative make a positive. So in this case, we have 15 plus 20. So 15 plus 20, it's going to give us 35. So that's how you can also subtract a negative number in one single step.